Hurricane George begins its siege on the Gulf Coast. Wind, rain, and coastal flooding over a 100-mile stretch.
Only a fool would take something like this lightly. It's serious business.
The storm's center is still headed towards an area just east of New Orleans. The Superdome has been designated as a shelter.
We hope and pray that each one of you will be following through and taking shelter, because this is a very large, dangerous storm.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News, reported by Len Cannon.
Good evening. Hurricane George is bearing down on the Gulf Coast tonight with 110-mile-per-hour winds. It's expected to cause massive flooding from Alabama to Louisiana. Hundreds of thousands have evacuated the coast. Just where will this storm hit? Ground zero appears to be an area east of New Orleans. We have 3 reports tonight. Kenley Jones is in New Orleans, as is Robert Hager. And Bob Dotson is an hour east in Gulfport, Mississippi. First, Bob Dotson.
Len, the hurricane is now less than 100 miles due south of here, so there is a curfew from dusk to dawn. No one allowed out on the streets except essential personnel. Fact of the matter is that most people who live along the coastline have already gone a long time ago. No one wants to be here when Hurricane George comes for Sunday dinner. The storm hit like a fist, punching ashore near Pensacola, Florida, pounding man-made beaches. A wall of water in some places 15 feet high. Low tides helped, but the wind is whipping floodwaters into city streets. Red Andrews, who lives west of Pensacola in Biloxi, Mississippi, heard what was coming.
Only a fool would take something like this lightly. It's serious business.
What time did y'all?
Shelters 150 miles inland are filling up. Hotels are booked solid in the entire state of Mississippi. Mary Jermusic and her friend Debbie Creek had won a free trip from Minneapolis, betting the storm would not close the 11 Gulf Coast casinos.
We found out that the casino was closing 4 hours after we got in, so we had to gamble until 8 o'clock that night, and then we found out our hotel was closing the next morning.
Paul McNally was luckier. He picked this last calm moment to clean out his gutters.
Today's the only day I can take care of my own.
McNally, the Gulfport Park superintendent, has been making sure everyone else is safe. But the time to prepare is past.
Then I'm going to start looking out after my body. Take care of our lives, because we can replace all this.
Not everyone has left low-lying areas. Police are asking those who stay for the name of their next of kin. Hurricane-force winds are expected here overnight, and that could bring lots of rain for more than 12 hours. If that happens, there could be terrible flooding, not just along the coast, but far to the north. Len?
NBC's Bob Dotson in Gulfport tonight. Thank you. Now, about an hour from Gulfport is NBC's Robert Hager in the historic French Quarter in New Orleans. Bob?
Len, we're feeling some wind and rain now as the storm approaches, with the probability of 15 to 25 inches of rain associated with the storm and 10 to 15 feet of storm surge. New Orleans is a city that is concerned. We have the Mississippi River here on one side. We have a huge lake on the other side, and much of the city is as much as 9 feet below sea level. So it depends on a system of man-made barriers to hold back the water as it braces tonight for this big storm. Winds are whipping the waters of Lake Pontchartrain along the city's northern border. Waves and spray spewing over banks and into surrounding neighborhoods. As New Orleans opens the doors of its huge indoor football stadium, the Superdome, to be used as a shelter. First time in the 23 years since it was built. Hundreds fought to get in, frightened, like Miriam Harris and her 4 children.
I was scared. And my children were scared, and I had to get them out the house.
Marie Potter, husband and 3 kids, fled their trailer.
We probably won't have a home when we get back. We probably won't.
In the shadow of the home team's banner, they crowded the floors of the Dome's showrooms, normally used for conventions. But from people like Eugene Elsie, there were no complaints.
When you come down to your life, you know, it doesn't matter if it's crowded or not, you know, you just want to get safe, so.
And pray for the best to happen, and to pray that the storm go another direction. I don't hope the bad on nobody else, but I would pray for it to go another direction.
The New Orleans airport is deserted, flights canceled, ticket counters empty, planes gone, flown inland for protection from damage. At midday, interstate highways were closed as well. Interstate 10 and the long causeway across Lake Pontchartrain. The city's storied French Quarter, normally teeming with revelers, now uncharacteristically quiet. Even famed Bourbon Street, boarded up, locked up. To hold back the water, New Orleans depends on 130 miles of big levees and 116 floodgates, a unique hurricane protection system. Beyond that, the city depends on a series of big pumping stations to pump floodwaters out. But at full power, the pumps can only keep up with about a half-inch of rain an hour. More than that, and this city faces trouble, making it among America's most vulnerable in the face of a big storm like this one. A curfew has now gone into effect and will remain into effect until daylight, as this city hopes that the brunt of the storm may pass somewhat to the east of here. Len?
NBC's Robert Hager along the Mississippi River in the French Quarter. Thank you. NBC's Kenley Jones isn't far away in downtown New Orleans tonight after spending the day in waterfront parishes south of the city. Good evening, Kenley.
Good evening, Lynn. Unlike New Orleans, many of the low-lying parishes that surround the city are not protected by levees. That's why mandatory evacuation orders were issued there. And it appears many residents have obeyed. Large parts of the Delta below New Orleans were deserted today. Houses boarded up, fishing boats tied up, their crews nowhere in sight. Even some boats have their windows covered. The St. Bernard Parish High School served as a staging area for evacuees who decided today they had waited long enough to leave.
I've made a personal survey of the community, and it's the most I've ever seen leave for a storm. The people took heed of it.
In the fishing community of Jean Lafitte, Constable Albert Crepel says memories of Hurricane Betsy in 1965, which he lived through, may have contributed to the exodus. That was the last time New Orleans took a direct hit by a major storm. 58 people died. But not everyone has left Jean Lafitte. Marina owner Dwight Hinton said he's staying.
My livelihood, my family, which includes my daughter and my son, they both work for me full-time down here, and we have to stay down here and protect what we have.
His daughter Deborah is not so sure she wants to stay. She says the sight of empty streets, empty boats, and empty houses is eerie.
I mean, it's scary to me. This is my first time being in one. It's going to be an experience that I'll never forget, being home with my mom and dad, my brother, and everybody. It's just a scary feeling.
That scary feeling may be justified. Hurricane-force winds are now brushing the southernmost parts of the Delta and are expected to intensify during the night. Lynn?
NBC's Kenley Jones in downtown New Orleans. Thank you. Now, continuing coverage of Hurricane George can be found on our website. That's at msnbc.com. When NBC Nightly News continues in a moment, hardball politics in Washington. The hardest hitter in Big League Baseball's home run derby gets number 70. And later, in focus, how real science grew out of science fiction.
I thought you were starting to go gray.
I was, but I never did.
So what happened, a miracle?
You can't tell?
Tell what?
I use Just for Men.
That's hair color?
Even your barber can't tell you use the hair coloring called Just for Men. Simply shampoo in, then rinse. In only 5 minutes, this unique Just for Men formula blends away the gray, actually matches your gray to your real color.
I never would have guessed.
Just for Men, so natural, even your barber can't tell.
Tonight, we had the perfect meal for us. The Olive Garden's never-ending pasta bowl. You pick any of their special pastas, and you get all the free refills you want, plus all the salad and breadsticks for $6.95. Good thing I was born hungry. The Olive Garden. When you're here, you're family.
Adrenaline rushing. Hearts pounding. Heavy breathing. It's almost as much fun as your first date. Royal Caribbean, like no vacation on earth.
There were optimistic signs today that one of President Clinton's legal problems may soon be solved. Details now from NBC's John Palmer.
As the president ended a three-day Western campaign fundraising swing, administration officials confirmed that negotiations aimed at settling the Paula Jones lawsuit are underway, but stressed Mr. Clinton is making no admission of wrongdoing. Those close to the negotiations say Jones's decision to drop her long-standing demand for an apology cleared the way for a financial settlement of somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million.
I'm very optimistic at this point. I think it benefits everybody to settle at this point.
If the Paula Jones civil case is settled, it would make it easier for Mr. Clinton to strike a deal with Congress to avert impeachment. This could allow the president to talk candidly to Congress about his January 17th deposition in the Jones case, when he denied having a sexual relationship with Monica Lewinsky. But three veteran politicians suggested as possible mediators between the president and Congress said today there won't be a deal with Congress anytime soon.
Nothing's going to happen before the elections. The House will vote to proceed with the inquiry, and I assume then they'll go home for the elections and come back afterwards and let the process work.
If it goes over to the Senate, then maybe there's time to talk about a plea bargain, but it's way too soon to do that.
Clinton's former chief of staff said the outcome of the elections will have a big effect on any deal.
But if the Democrats hold their own in this next election, then I think there is a much better chance that this issue will be resolved sooner rather than later.
White House officials say the president, encouraged by his reception on the campaign fundraising trail this weekend, plans a lot more of these trips between now and Election Day. John Palmer, NBC News, with the president in Texas.
This was Election Day in Germany, and for the first time since World War II, a sitting chancellor has been toppled. The winner, Gerhard Schröder, is now set to replace Helmut Kohl, who has headed the German government for the past 16 years. Schröder, a pro-business moderate, campaigned as the voice of change. Germany's new government will face the same problem the old one did: how to reform the nation's generous but very expensive social service system. NBC's Jim Maceda is in Frankfurt tonight.
A day at the spa, a massage, a mud bath, gymnastics in the pool, all paid for by German Social Security, a welfare system Germany can no longer afford and no politician wants to seriously reform.
Perfect.
A system that for 100 years has pampered German workers. A $30 an hour average wage for only a 30-hour week, 6 weeks paid vacation, fat pensions, and yes, 3 weeks of spa time. But there is a dark side. At the unemployment office, almost 11% of Germans out of work.
The price is that we live with 4.2 million unemployed people now, and this is to a large degree due to these overly generous welfare system.
The $800 billion cost has drained the economy and taxed the worker to death. Klaus, a chemist in a big pharmaceutical company, makes about $40,000 a year, but half of that goes to taxes, Social Security, and his pension. He, like many Germans, is fed up and worried.
I'm paying so much into my pension without the promise of anything back.
Why? Because with one of the world's lowest birth rates, in 50 years, say analysts, there'll be more pensioners than workers to support them. The system will go belly up. Many companies have heard the wake-up call. German companies, even some of the biggest brand names here, are moving their businesses abroad where labor costs are lower. That means even more money flowing out of a welfare system already nearly bankrupt. Today, even Volkswagen, the people's car, makes as many vehicles outside of Germany as in. Kirsten says she's proud of her perks, once a model for the world.
The system is one for all and all for one.
But unless the new government dares to cut the fat, this flood of benefits Germans take for granted will dry up for good. Jim Maceda, NBC News, Frankfurt.
From Bosnia today, word that NATO forces have arrested another war crimes suspect. Stefan Todorovic is accused of murder, rape, and torture. In the town where he was chief of police, 15,000 Muslims and Croats were either forced from their homes or killed. When NBC Nightly News continues, NASA takes a page from Star Trek.
How come you do me like you do? How come you do
Even if you
me
can't
like
always treat your wood furniture with kid gloves, always treat it to Pledge. Because Pledge does what's right for your wood. Its conditioners care for and protect it far longer than dusting sprays. So treat your furniture like you do. And where life goes on, let Pledge go on. S.C. Johnson Wax.
It's coming. And this time there's something new. Now there's a wind tunnel by Hoover that's self-propelled, so it almost works by itself. Tests show wind tunnel picks up more dirt than any other clean air upright. And now you can get one that's self-propelled. Self-propelled wind tunnel.
Charlie, you know how we're always trying to find something to watch?
Yeah?
Well, now we can get Prime Star satellite TV installed for just $49.
Oh.
Hey, guys!
Oh, no.
Or we can get it installed on 2 TVs for just $99.
Who asked you? $49 installed, Chuck.
Sports here, movies there.
Let's get it.
Okay. He's gonna get it.
All right.
Prime Star, $49 on 1 TV, $99 on 2. Call 1-800-PRIME-STAR or visit your local Radio Shack.
Introducing the all-new 1999 Grand Am. Its solid form design provides a stronger body structure so you can play as hard as you like with hardly a rattle.
Solid.
Excitement, well built. The all-new Grand Am by Pontiac.
A Fleecing of America update. Wonder what's happened since we reported on this mail fraud scam, Medicaid ripoff, and daycare closing? Find out on NBC Nightly News Monday.
In focus this evening, NASA's next date with destiny. 3.5 weeks from now, a tiny spacecraft will lift off into history. Here's NBC's Mike Betcher.
The future of space travel is wrapped in a package barely as big as a person. Deep Space One, as NASA calls this spacecraft, will be launched October 22nd by a traditional liquid fuel rocket. But once separated from the booster, tradition ends. DS-1 will become the first earthly spacecraft to be powered by the stuff of science fiction, ion propulsion.
This is really a revolutionary new technology, a revolutionary propulsion system that's going to allow us to go places we couldn't have gone before.
It's no accident that Mark Raymond's pronouncement sounds a bit Star Trek-ish. Deep Space One's chief engineer first heard of ion propulsion 30 years ago in a Star Trek episode.
Scotty says something like, "Oh, Captain, I've never seen anything like her." And ion propulsion at that, they could teach us a thing or two.
Science fiction become fact. It works this way. The ship's fuel, xenon gas, is charged with electricity, forming particles called ions, which shoot from the back of DS-1, gradually increasing its speed by about 10,000 miles per hour.
Because the thrust is very low, it means that the engine has to operate for a long period of time, thousands of hours on a deep space mission.
And along with its brawn, DS-1 has brains, the first spacecraft with what amounts to artificial intelligence, a computer system that can learn from mistakes.
The autonomy on board the spacecraft is going to allow the spacecraft to make decisions on its own, rapidly respond to changes in its environment.
And the environment that DS-1 will face will be hazardous. On its way to the far reaches of the solar system, it will have a close encounter with an asteroid and a comet. This mission is costing $152 million, inexpensive in the context of space travel, and in line with the current NASA slogan of better, faster, cheaper. That was also the mantra of the highly successful 1997 Mars Pathfinder mission. Pathfinder, DS-1, and the coming second spaceflight of John Glenn have lifted NASA's stature and visibility at a critical time when it's seeking more money for the controversial International Space Station.
The technology advances that we're proving here on DS-1 and other upcoming New Millennium missions are those that can make or break many of the missions that we have planned in the future.
Deep Space One is the first launch in what NASA calls its New Millennium Project, which will test new technologies to be used in 21st century space travel. But in DS-1, The 21st century is already here. Mike Betcher, NBC News, Los Angeles.
When we continue, 2 winners, but only 1 champion.
Chevy Tahoe with the Vortec engine. The most powerful SUV anywhere.
You already know how important calcium is for your bones, but did you know that 85% of women still don't get enough? So start your day with Total. It's the only leading cereal that's an excellent source of calcium, even before adding milk. In fact, Total has more calcium than the milk itself. No other leading cereal comes close. Simple, low-fat, delicious. So good, you can feel it in your bones. Total Raisin Bran, Total Corn Flakes. One bowl, one great source of calcium.
Linda. No, up here. Why waste time checking office supply prices? You know you'll always get guaranteed low prices at Staples.
Thanks. Candy?
Thank you. Ooh, caramel. Ooh.
Staples has guaranteed low prices on everything for your office, like binders for 68 cents. Want trade prices? Staples. Yeah, we've got that.
This week, behind the scenes with Robin Williams, plus Frasier's Kelsey Grammer, and our summer concert series ends with Phil Collins. This week on Today.
You didn't know Walmart has all these tools? Can't beat our lab-tested Popular Mechanics line. So tough, they're guaranteed forever. We've got all kinds of wrenches and sockets. You can even design your own set and add to it later. We got your name brand power tools, as well as plumbing supplies. All kinds of light bulbs, even ceiling fans, all at everyday low prices. Pick up your hardware along with your regular Walmart shopping. We're the hardware store inside your Walmart store.
Big, very big, the Les Schwab Fall Tire Sale.
To Big League Baseball's home run derby between Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa. Sosa has 1 game left to play tomorrow, but McGwire ended his season today in a big way. NBC Stan Bernard reports on baseball's very good year.
Mark McGwire did it, his 69th, and did it again, his 70th home run on the final day of the season. Chicago's Sammy Sosa finished today with 66. It has been a magical season, a season of superlatives.
This is a season that I will never, ever forget, and I hope everybody in baseball never forget, so thank you very much.
McGwire and Sosa buried under a blizzard of home runs any remnants of fan bitterness which may have lingered from the 1994 players' strike. Their record-shattering competition helped draw an average of more than 29,000 fans to each Major League game, up nearly 16% from the 1995 post-strike season.
I'm coming back. I love baseball.
20 years I've been watching baseball, and this has been the most exciting season ever.
This was also the year that Baltimore's Cal Ripken voluntarily ended his Ironman record, which started in 1982. He played in 2,632 consecutive games. And the iron-armed pitcher Roger Clemens finished unbeaten in his final 22 starts, the longest unbeaten streak since 1969. Today, the Yankees won their 114th game and finished with a winning percentage of better than .700, the first time that's been done since Cleveland did it in 1954. But this will be the indelible image of baseball 1998, a vintage year. Stan Bernard, NBC News, New York.
A scare today for Attorney General Janet Reno. She was rushed to the hospital after she collapsed during a church service. Doctors say it was merely a fainting spell, but she will spend the night in a coronary care unit just in case. When NBC Nightly News continues in a moment, an update on the movements of Hurricane George.
A thought for those of you married to your job. Every once in a while, have a fling.
with your wife. Royal Caribbean, like no vacation on earth.
Keep it going! Okay, that's enough.
Bayer can relieve joint inflammation and stiffness. Tylenol can't. And taken regularly, Bayer can help save your life. Ask your doctor. Bayer, powerful pain relief and so much more.
You thought it was over with, but you're still smoking. You keep trying to quit, but you keep lighting up. Zyban can help you look at quitting a whole new way. It's the nicotine in cigarettes that's addictive. It's been proven, and most people need help to quit. Today, there's nicotine-free Zyban. Not a patch, not a gum. Instead, the first pill that is part of a comprehensive program from your doctor can help you quit smoking. Zyban is prescription medicine that can help reduce your urge to smoke and make quitting bearable. It's important to know there's a risk of seizure associated with Zyban. To reduce the risk, don't take Zyban if you've had an eating or seizure disorder or are being treated with Wellbutrin. Don't take Zyban if you're taking an MAO inhibitor. Quitting is tough, and Zyban won't work for everyone. See your doctor or pharmacist for information written especially for patients. Ask your doctor if Zyban is right for you. And break free from nicotine. Break free from smoking.
Dateline Sunday, Hurricane George. The stories, the dramas, the battles between man and the elements. The survivors of nature's wrath. Plus, he turned Jacqueline Kennedy into Jackie O. The inside story of one of the world's most powerful men, one of America's most famous women, and their life together. Dateline Sunday on NBC.
There's only one place to see the most compelling news magazine on cable from the people of NBC News. But you can't see it if you don't get it. MSNBC.
Updating our top story now, the leading edge of Hurricane George has begun coming ashore along the Gulf Coast. The huge storm has maximum sustained winds of 110 miles an hour and gusts that are even stronger. Gulf Coast communities from New Orleans east to Alabama have been evacuated. The full force of George will hit some of those communities overnight. And joining us now is Jerry Gerald, director of the National Hurricane Center in Miami. Good evening, Jerry.
Good evening.
What do you think is the projected path of the hurricane at this point, and when will it make landfall?
Well, we think it's going to go toward the northwest slowly. We have it going at about 8 miles per hour, and probably then get up to about the coastline and then probably turn north. That probably will keep it a little bit east of New Orleans, and because it's moving slow, they may have to suffer with this thing for the next couple of days before it gets to the north of them.
And when will it make landfall, do you think?
Well, we're probably talking about the middle of the day tomorrow sometime, and then they'll still have to put up with it for a while after that, though.
What kind of storm surge do you expect from the wind from this storm?
We're looking at up to 10 to 15 feet above the normal tides and rainfall of as much as 25 inches, perhaps even 30 inches in some locations.
You mentioned that it was veering a little bit further to the east away from New Orleans. Is it possible that New Orleans could be spared some of the brunt of this storm?
It's a little early to say, but there are some hopeful signs that they might be a little less affected than we had feared.
When will we be able to know for sure whether or not this thing is going to veer a little bit further to the east than what we had thought earlier?
Yeah, I guess you know a little bit more with each hour. Probably it's going to be well into the night before we would be sure, I'd think.
All right, Hurricane Center Director Jerry Gerald, thank you so much.
Okay.
Stay with this NBC station for up-to-the-minute hurricane coverage and in-depth reports tomorrow on Today. That's NBC Nightly News for this Sunday. Here's Jane Pauley with a look at what's ahead on tonight's edition of Dateline.